As you know, most of the images we produce in the field of visuals consist of a high percentage of plants and trees. Also, the use of plants makes our work more detailed and more realistic. So it is very important to pay attention to plants and how they scatter. Today's tutorial is about plant scatter on surfaces, of course, in the fastest and most professional way possible. Hello, welcome to MIMViz. First, let's check the file together and then go to the training. The scene consists of a simple room, a surface covered with plants, and a subject. Let's take a look at the floating viewport. As you can see, a chair is placed in a third of the picture. Also, some bamboo trees on the left side of the frame give us shadows on the surface of the plants and the wall to create contrast and depth. After installing V-Ray and Corona, a toolbar will be created for us that we can see on the left side of the window. To create chaos, scatter, just select it and create it by clicking and dragging. In the next part, we see a complete list of all chaos scatters in the scene and we can access their parameters. To start, we need a surface for the scatterer, which I drew as a clothesline earlier. We also need several scattered objects on that surface. I used this collection of objects to download it. Just click on the link in the description, enter our Telegram channel, and download it. Well, let's move on to the chaos scatter parameters. We go to Modify. We open the first tab, Object. In the first part, we can add the surfaces we drew for the scatter. I added the drawn line. In the second part, we must add the objects that we want to scatter on that surface. As you can see, the plants were completely randomly distributed on the surface. As you can see, our plants spread on the surface. In the frequency section, by selecting each object, the percentage of its use can be increased or decreased compared to the rest of the objects. For example, I use this plant twice as much as other plants and consider this plant as half of the others. Well, there are different modes for displaying scattered objects that we can control. So we go to the Viewport Display tab, and in the Type section, we can try different options to see which one is more convenient. I always use point cloud because it keeps the file size very low and you can easily continue working in the scene. For example, if you use full mesh, the file becomes very heavy and it is difficult to work for normal systems. So the best option is point cloud. Here you can increase the similarity to the object by increasing the number. Here too, if you use a high percentage, the file will be heavy. Number 1 is good. Well, let's see the result in the frame buffer. First, we specify a region to see the result faster. As you can see, the number of plants is very low, so we need to increase it. Well, we open the scattering and surface scattering tabs to work on the number of plants. In this tab, you can create different scatter modes, which we use to descatter in this tutorial. From this section, we can set a limit for the number of plants. For example, if we enter the number 30 here, we see that only up to 30 plants can be scattered. I put a high number so that we don't have a limit. From this part, we can randomly create different layouts. In the surface scattering section, the number can be increased or decreased with the help of count. I will increase the number so that we can see the result in the rendering. We must pay attention to the limit number because if we put a number higher than it, it will not be applied. I use a larger number. I will test 13,000. Yes, it is suitable. We stop the rendering and go to the next part. Let's have some randomization for plants. We can do this from the transformation section. Plants can be moved randomly in the transform section. For example, on the X and Y axis, each plant can be randomly moved up to 5 centimeters. In the rotation section, we can randomly rotate objects in the z-axis from 0 to 360 degrees. In the scale section, we can control the overall scale. For example, if I want all objects to be small, I use 1030%. Well, since the dimensions of the plant are suitable here, I use the same 100%. I set 100 to 130 to have a complete randomization of plants. Let's take a test render and see what happens. Yes, as you can see, randomization was also applied. In some scenes, scattering is formed in large areas. To control the size of the file, we must control the scattering. In the camera clipping section, we can specify that scattering is formed only at the rendering angle. You can specify the desired camera manually, and the active camera can be considered automatically. Now let's test it with this camera and see what happens. You can see that the rest of the parts were not scattered. Well, I added the wrong camera. We select the main camera and we see that in the camera angle, it seems that the entire surface is covered with plants. We can also choose active render camera, which will automatically consider the active camera. Sometimes it is necessary to add or remove a path of objects. Well, here we can easily do it by drawing a line. Let me go to the top view. We define the path by drawing a line. Now I will edit it a bit. Now we need to add it to the chaos scatter. To add it, we need to go to the area section. From the first part, we can add that line and say that the scatter contains only this path. From the second part, that path can be cleared of plants. We add the line, and by selecting it from the far section, we determine how many centimeters of the line are required to be empty. Let's see in the rendering. Yes, as you can see, the plants are not scattered in that direction. We can change that line at the same time and see the result instantly. Let's see the rendering. We see that the path was empty of plants and we did it differently. By adding different plants, you can create a more natural look in the image. Larger plants, adding leaves and tree branches, all these will make the work more natural and we will have a more attractive result. Don't forget to like us, comment, and don't forget to subscribe. If you need more training in this field, be sure to comment for us so that we can produce the tutorial. Thank you very much for being with us. Stay tuned for more tutorials.